Airports are meant to be places of movement, progress, and connection. They are where journeys begin, where people from all walks of life cross paths, and where the excitement of travel fills the air. But sometimes, amid the announcements, the rolling luggage, and the long lines, something unexpected happens, something that forces us to pause and question the world around us. What should have been an ordinary boarding experience recently turned into something much more unsettling. A man, calm and composed, found himself at the center of an incident that has once again brought to light uncomfortable but necessary conversations. On a commercial flight, during what seemed like a routine boarding process, this man was approached by flight staff. Witnesses say he had asked a question, perhaps about seating or standard procedure, but nothing out of the ordinary. Yet, within minutes, the situation took a turn. Airport security was called, and he was escorted off the plane. No threats, no raised voices, no violence. Just a man, quietly removed from a flight he had every right to be on. And that moment has left many people asking, why? Why was this man, who had done nothing visibly wrong, removed from a flight without explanation that made sense to those watching? Was it a misunderstanding? A misjudgment? Or was it something deeper? Something many individuals have experienced but few are willing to talk about openly. Was it about safety? Or was it about something else entirely? In today's video, we'll explore what really happened. We'll take a closer look at how the situation unfolded, how others on the flight responded, and what the broader public has been saying since the video surfaced. More importantly, we'll reflect on what this incident says about how people are treated in shared spaces, especially when they look different from the majority. This isn't just about one moment on a plane. It's about a pattern, a system, and the urgent need for change. So stay with us as we unpack a story that's not just about travel, but about dignity, justice, and the right to exist in public spaces without fear. The aircraft was nearly full. Passengers were settling into their seats, placing bags in the overhead compartments, switching seats with family members, adjusting their headphones, and preparing for the flight ahead. There was a quiet hum of routine activity, the kind of calm that marks the final minutes before takeoff. Among the travelers was a man who boarded like anyone else. He walked down the aisle, found his seat, placed his belongings under the seat in front of him, and sat quietly. He didn't draw attention to himself. He didn't disturb anyone. From all appearances, he was simply ready to begin his journey like everyone else on board. Then there was a moment, a brief interaction between the man and a flight attendant. According to witnesses, it seemed he had a question. Some said it was about his seat, whether it could be changed or if he was in the right row. Others thought he was asking about space for his luggage or general inquiry about airline procedure. Nothing loud, nothing confrontational, just a man speaking to a staff member, as countless passengers do every single day on flights around the world. Eyewitnesses later confirmed that the man remained calm throughout the interaction. His tone was polite, his posture relaxed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult anyone. He wasn't blocking the aisle or causing any visible disturbance. It was, by all accounts, a normal passenger-crew exchange. And yet, the energy shifted. Moments after the conversation, another crew member approached, then another. The crew began to talk quietly among themselves, glancing toward the man. Tension grew, though there was still no obvious conflict. Soon after, a decision was made. Security was called to the aircraft. Passengers began to murmur. Some pulled out their phones. The man looked visibly confused. He wasn't resisting or arguing. His voice remained low. He appeared to ask what was happening, why this was escalating. Before there was a clear answer, uniformed security officers entered the cabin. They walked directly toward him, their expressions firm and rehearsed. They asked him to leave the plane. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting match. The man asked a simple question. Why? But no specific explanation was offered. Passengers around him began recording. A few looked stunned. Still, the man complied. He slowly stood up, gathered his belongings, and walked down the aisle with 2 officers at his side. No apology, no clarification, no acknowledgement of the disruption to his journey. Just silence, and then his absence. The cabin was quiet after he left. People exchanged glances. The space he had occupied now sat empty, the seatbelt still buckled. In those few minutes, something more than a travel plan had been disrupted. Something far deeper was taken. Not just a boarding pass, but a person's sense of belonging. A moment like that lingers. Not because it was loud, but because it wasn't. It was the quietness that spoke the loudest. The quiet removal of a man who had done nothing wrong. And with that, trust was shaken, dignity was questioned, and a flight continued forward, missing 1 passenger and carrying the weight of many unspoken thoughts. As the video of the incident began circulating online, the internet responded swiftly and emotionally. It spread across platforms within hours, reaching viewers far beyond the walls of that aircraft. Some people watched in disbelief, others with painful recognition. The reactions were intense, varied, and filled with questions. Many called it shameful, expressing outrage that a man could be removed from a flight without any obvious reason. Others rushed to defend the airline, insisting that the crew must have had their reasons, even if those reasons weren't shared publicly. But beneath all the opinions and debates, one question echoed more than any other. Would this have happened if he looked different? Social media was flooded with posts, comments, and videos reacting to the moment. "He didn't do anything wrong," one user wrote. "He was just sitting there." Another commented, "It was clear profiling." This happens too often, and people pretend it doesn't. The video had no sound from the beginning of the incident, but the visual was enough. A calm man, escorted off a plane, 2 officers, a silent cabin. That image alone stirred deep emotions in viewers. It tapped into memories, personal stories, and historical pain that never truly left the surface. Those who were on the flight shared their perspectives anonymously, in interviews and posts. One passenger recalled, "I was sitting 2 rows behind him. He was calm the entire time. It didn't make sense. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just asked a question." Another said, "You could feel the shift. It was like everything changed the moment he spoke up." These accounts only deepened the questions being asked. What was the real reason behind the removal, and why wasn't it explained? This wasn't the first time a person of color was removed from a plane without a clear explanation. In fact, it wasn't even the first time this year. Incidents like this have been documented before, sometimes caught on camera, sometimes not. But every time, they leave behind the same bitter feeling, that rules are not applied equally, that some people are seen as problems before they even open their mouths. It's part of a wider pattern, one that communities have been trying to highlight for years. A pattern where race influences how actions are interpreted, how silence is read, and how presence itself is judged. At what point do these isolated moments stop being isolated? When do we stop calling them unfortunate coincidences and start seeing them as signs of a system that needs questioning? That's the question many are now asking, not just online, but in conversations around dinner tables, in classrooms, and in community spaces. Because when stories like this surface, they don't stand alone. They join a long chain of similar moments that point toward something deeper, more systemic, and more urgent to confront. To be fair, airline staff are trained to prioritize safety. They're asked to make quick decisions under pressure. Their responsibility is not small. But that leads to another important question. What defines suspicious behavior? And who gets to decide what qualifies? If calmness is no longer a sign of cooperation, and a simple question is seen as a threat, then where does that leave us? And who among us is safe from misinterpretation? For some viewers, this incident was just another story in the endless stream of news. A quick headline, a forgettable clip. But for others, it was a reminder of something they've felt all too often, that their humanity can be questioned in an instant, simply because of how they look. It's a painful truth, spoken not with anger, but with exhaustion, and each time it happens again, the weight grows heavier, not just for the person removed, but for everyone who sees a part of themselves in him. Air travel is meant to connect us. It brings families together, opens up opportunities, and reminds us that the world is wide and full of possibility. But as this incident shows, that connection can quickly dissolve when bias enters the picture. In a space where everyone should feel equal, small judgments can create deep divides. What happened on that flight wasn't just about a misunderstanding. It was about how quickly assumptions can replace facts, and how easily someone's presence can be turned into a problem. Imagine preparing for a trip, packing carefully, planning ahead, arriving early to make sure everything goes smoothly. You board your flight, sit down, and wait. You've done everything right. But then, without warning, you're asked to leave. Not because of what you've done, but because of how someone perceives you. That kind of moment stays with a person. It breaks more than a routine. It breaks trust, comfort, and the feeling that you belong. This isn't about outrage for the sake of outrage. It's about awareness. It's about asking the right questions, not just to criticize, but to understand, to grow, to change. We all play a role in shaping the world we move through. Every conversation, every decision, every moment of attention matters. And when things like this happen, silence isn't a neutral choice, it's a statement too. If we want a future where dignity travels with us, whether we're in a small regional lounge or a massive international terminal, we have to speak up. We have to notice. We have to care. If you believe every passenger deserves fairness and respect, share this video. Leave a comment. Start a conversation with someone. Because it's not enough to watch. What we do next is what makes the difference.